Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sofia Azevedo and this is my colleague Marta Candeias. We are the Portuguese NMP National Contact Points, and as part of the NMP National Contact Points European Network, the NMP team, which is funded by the European Commission, we are organizing a 7th virtual event for clients. We have already organized other 6 about technology readiness levels, business plans, synergies with other funding mechanisms, policy mix, partner search tool, and Horizon 2020 prizes. Today's virtual event for clients is about the EMIRI, the Energy Materials Industrial Research Initiative. Fabrice Tassin, EMIRI Executive Director, will make a presentation about this initiative. This event will take around 1 hour, and it will consist of a presentation followed by a questions and answers session. So please feel free to ask questions during the presentation using the chat box. This event will be recorded, and along with the presentation and the answers, it will be published on the NMP team website. Without any further delays, let us start our event. Good afternoon, Fabrice. Thank you again for being available to present EMIRI. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Just after lunch. Thanks also for giving me the opportunity to present what EMIRI is all about. And without further ado, I think we can jump to slide number 2. So in a nutshell, what is EMIRI all about? EMIRI is an industry-driven grouping of over 60 organizations. We were established as a legal entity at the end of 2012. By industry-driven grouping, it means that it's not only industry players, it's not only RTOs or universities. The purpose was really to bring together a balance of industry players, research organizations, and different associations, which are operating across Europe, across different energy technologies. The aim is really to be a key player in shaping and implementing a European policy for materials, to make sure that we are promoting a strong and vibrant, based in Europe, industry for the production of these materials for low carbon energy technologies. Today, actually, I will mention often the word LCE, or low carbon energy technologies. You have to see this in a broad term that starts from the energy performance of buildings to the harvesting or the generation of energy, the storage of energy, and the decarbonization. The activities of EMIRI are driven by the SET plan, so the Strategy Energy Technologies Plan, and of course they support President Juncker priority of the Energy Union. The purpose of EMIRI is really to accelerate as much as possible, taking the materials from the lab to the markets. And we can jump to slide number 3, where I want to show you actually which are the partners which are current members of EMIRI. You have an industry community, which is on the top left of the slide. It's supported by research and technology organizations, as well as associations. And it's very important for you to also realize that we have a very broad definitions of what advanced materials are. It starts with steel, non-ferrous metals, alloys, glass, ceramics, polymers, plastics, composites, everything which is actually helping an application in the terms of energy to come alive. If you look at the industry which are members of EMIRI, they do not have to be European companies. They have to be companies manufacturing in Europe. So you will see, of course, that a company like AGC, which is a Japanese company, part of Mitsubishi, is present in EMIRI. You have companies like Dow Chemical, but you also have more European companies like Umicore, Siemens, Solvay, Bosch. On the slide where you see a smaller red dot, it means that this company or this organization is part of the board of the association. Now, when it comes to the topic that we are supporting, you will see on the bottom right a pie chart with different colors. Actually, what we are supporting is PV and CSP, wind and ocean energy, energy storage, the decarbonization, as well as the energy performance of buildings. If we look at the membership of EMIRI today, we are present in 19 European countries. We are representing about 80 corporate innovation centers, as well as 50 manufacturing sites. Now, if we go to the slide number 4, what is the added value of being an EMIRI member? And I want to stress here that it's an open club in the sense that if you're active in materials and if you're active in Europe, you are of course free to join us. What you have of course to keep in mind is that we are not receiving, like some ETPs, any support, any funding from the European Commission. So we need to charge a membership fee in order to be able to survive. In terms of added value for any organization to become a member of EMIRI, the first one is that you increase your visibility towards European and national policymakers. You are networking, and then you are maybe more prompt to participate in setting the long-term priorities of Europe. You are joining a very strong network. And of course, you are informed about the European and the member states' priorities when it comes to energy and materials. If you go to slide number 5, what I also want to stress today is that if you are in a situation in which you are not ready to commit resources to becoming a member of EMIRI, either because you do not have the funds or because you do not have a lot of time, but you still want to help shape the European innovation framework, then of course it's possible to join what we are calling the EMIRI community. And joining this EMIRI community is actually free of charge. I will not go further into the details of what you can have in terms of return when you are becoming a member of community. But if you want to become a member of the community, on the slide number 5, you will see that there is a Google form, a link. If you click on the link, or if you type the link in your Internet Explorer, you will have access to a form, and then you can indicate to us that you want to be part of the community. Anything that helps us to become a bigger community makes the case stronger. It helps also to network, and it helps to bring more attention to the field of materials for energy in Europe. Now, if we go to slide number 6, and I don't think that I have to convince a lot of people, because if you are joining the call, you must be aware of this, but it's very important to keep in mind that the cost of these low carbon energy technologies, it needs to keep coming down. If we want to accelerate the deployment and the adoption of these clean energy technologies in Europe, it has to happen like that. And if you look on the bottom left of the slide, you can see, for example, the cost structure of a battery cell for electric vehicles. And you can see that 60% of the cost is actually the advanced materials. So what does it mean? It means that if you want to reduce the cost of these technologies, you have to reduce the cost of the materials. Or you have to increase the performance that you can obtain with 1 kilo of material. Or you can also extend the lifetime of the materials so that you can use them for more cycles or for a longer time. What we also want to stress is that innovation in the field of advanced materials is not innovation in the field of a smartphone or of an app. It's very long, it's a very risky, and it's a very expensive process. And in that respect, it's of course very important for the industry as well as for the research organizations to be able to benefit from some risk sharing at European level. And that's why we are very happy and we are very supportive of the Horizon 2020 program. Now, if we jump to the slide number 7, I also wanted to share with you what is the status of our industry in Europe. If you look at all the companies that are producing materials in Europe for clean energy, together they generate around 30 billion euro of revenues. This is actually the size of the gross domestic product of a country like Serbia. So this is not negligible. In terms of jobs, our industry is occupying about 500,000 people. It's always nice to compare with other companies that people are quite supportive of. If you look at Facebook, for example, Facebook is counting around 15,000 people. So the sector of European producers of materials for low carbon energy technologies, it's around 30 times the size of Facebook in terms of people that we provide a job to. It's also 5,000 people doing research in the industry, a couple thousand more of people doing research in the RTO sector and the universities. And if you take how much money we spend every year in R&D in the private sector, as well as how much money we put on the table to, for example, create new capacity of production, it's around 3 billion euro. So you could say that 10% of all the revenues that we generate, we are reinvesting them in Europe. So this is quite nice. However, we have to keep in mind that there are some trends over the world which are affecting our industry. And it's very important that the European policies in innovation, but also in other domains, take this into account. And we can have a look at this on the slide number 8, where you have a few trends that I want to share with you. The first one is that the capacity for the production of clean energy is developing much faster outside of Europe than in Europe. If you look at China, this is today the leader in producing clean energy over the world. If, of course, you have this production of energy which is happening in China, there's, of course, a trend which is that the manufacturing of the devices, the components and the advanced materials that go into these technologies is also moving to these new markets. That means that the companies which are European or American are under some pressure, while at the same time, there is an emergence of new champions over the world that are developing in these new regions. This is not just a trend which has an impact on the industry, it's a trend which has an impact on the research organization world as well, because the innovation centers are also following the same trend. If companies are moving out of Europe, of course, they will start collaborating with the research organizations in the new countries, not in the old countries that they are leaving. So it's very important that we realize that it's actually a problem that the industry and the research world and the academic world must solve together. Now, if in the future you end up in a situation where most of these low carbon energy technologies are produced outside of Europe, it means that at the end of the day, instead of buying oil and gas from Middle East or from Russia, you will have to buy these technologies from other countries like China, for example. So this is also posing some kind of a risk assessment trend that we need to take into account. What you have on the bottom left of the slide is today's distribution of renewable energy jobs over the world. And what you can see already is that all these jobs, out of all these jobs, about 44% of these are in China. And Europe is actually seeing its leadership position melt like ice in the snow every year a little bit more, even though all the communications of the Commission are saying the opposite or are promising the opposite. But the real situation, the numbers show you that the European leadership is actually going away. Today in Europe, we still have about 1 million jobs in renewable energy, from the production of the materials to the installation of these technologies. And if you look at the illustration on the right side, you can see that actually 50%, 50, of all the jobs that we still have in Europe are actually in the field of materials. You can take the example, for example, of photovoltaic industry. Today, most of the photovoltaic modules are produced using crystalline silicon technology. Well, actually, what you see is that most of the crystalline silicon that is imported by China is coming from Germany. So we are still very strong in Europe when it comes to production of materials. Then these materials at some point are leaving the continent. They are integrated into a low carbon energy technology. And then these technologies are coming back to Europe. And if you take the examples of PV, we still have a very strong part of the value chain in materials and high precision equipment. When it comes to the production of the photovoltaic modules, we have lost most of it. And then at some point, the modules come back to Europe and they're installed and there is no strong installation industry. But the installation industry is not providing the same kind of jobs that you would have, for example, in research and innovation. Slide number 9. And I will not insist too much on that slide, but this is just to show you some detailed analysis that we have done at EMIRI. You can see actually that the amount of jobs which are present in Europe is actually decreasing every year. And actually, there are 6 columns, one for each region. The European column is the one that contains the less blue and the less green. And I will spare you the details. You have more time if you want to look at the slides later, but the more green and the more blue you have in your column, the better off you are. And there you see actually that Europe is the best student, is the worst student in the class. The situation is such that if we do not do something in Europe, we will represent less than 1 million jobs in renewable energy by 2020. That means that we will go from 14% of the total to below 10%. That also means that by that time, China will represent more than 50% of all the jobs. And by that time, actually, we will be also behind USA. So this is a very important message for people to understand. I also ask you when you talk to your national representatives to really try to make them understand that materials is a very important part of the. Now, if you look at the slide number 10, there are 3 recommendations that we want to promote at the level of EMIRI. The first one is that we need to develop the European market for clean energy in Europe. We have climate targets. These climate targets are on the table, but they are not ambitious enough. Of course, if Europe says by tomorrow, we want to increase the amount of clean energy which is installed in Europe, is growing the market. And that's very good for the industry and also for the RTOs which work with industry to develop the product. The second remark that we make is that it's not because you have a market that you are able to provide something to the market, because if European industry is not sufficiently strong in innovation, then other companies will provide these products to the market. That means that we need to increase and we need to focus the support on innovation, on materials for clean energy in the frame of Horizon 2020, but most importantly, because now Horizon 2020 in terms of programmation is coming to an end, but in terms of FP9, so the next framework program, we really need to give it a boost. We need to do the same, but we just need to put more money on the table. And the third element is that we need to create a business-friendly environment so that it's still possible in the long term to keep on doing business and manufacturing. Focus, of course, of EMIRI is on the second recommendation, which has to deal with innovation. But until now, I just wanted to guide you and to explain to you the situation that we see in the world today. Now, on slide number 11, I can give you a little bit more information on what EMIRI has done over the past years to defend and to advocate materials for clean energy. We have organized and we have led the input exercise of providing the Commission with the priorities that we see are important in the field of materials, whether it's in the NMBP work program, whether it's in the SETPLOR integrated roadmap, or whether it is in the low carbon energy work program of the Commission. Also very important, we try to be present in most of the European endorsed international conferences to keep on making sure that the policymakers are aware that materials are very important. A third point, which may be of very direct interest for the listeners, is that we are organizing brokerage and ideation events once the calls are announced. This is usually at no cost, so we are not charging anything for that event, but we are of course limited by the number of seats that we can provide. We provide these seats mostly to the members, and when there are seats that are still left, and this is usually the case, we provide these seats to the EMIRI community stakeholders. So here is also an invitation from me to you to register as fast as you can, to become a member of the EMIRI community, knowing that this is for free. We are, of course, participating to all the European Commission high-level group meetings of member states to have them guide the priority exercise. It's also, of course, very important to always interact with your national representatives so that is in the best position to defend your local interests, because we have to talk at the level of Europe, we have to bring the additional European value. And last but not least, and which is maybe the focus of the next slides, is that we have worked with the European Commission. Can you go back to the slide 11, please? Yeah, we have worked with the European Commission, the unit in charge of materials, in order to develop a strategic innovation roadmap, which is called EMIRI, Energy Materials for Europe. And in this document, which you are free to find on the website of EMIRI, you have all the list of the priorities that we are pushing. You have all the key performance indicators that we are pushing. So it's a very transparent and it's a very open exercise. The book is free, you can find it on the internet, and you have all the information that you can use for actually preparing yourself for the future course. Now, if we go to the slide 12, that was just to show the different events in which we have been active, bringing, I would say, the message. The next one in line is European Nano Forum, which is going to happen in Malta over a couple of weeks from now. And this is, of course, my invitation to you to join us as much as you can, because it's a great place if you want to network. It's a great place to meet the policymakers, to meet your national representatives. It's important to be there. Now we can jump to the slide 14. Next one, yeah. And I just wanted to explain to you the context in which we are, EMIRI, when it comes to influencing or advocating at the level of the Commission on where the money should be put in terms of materials. The first action that we have is, of course, to be active in the framework of the SET plan, which is the Strategy Energy Technology Plan, where it has been decided by the Commission to focus on 10 actions, which are in light blue on the slide. And then these 10 key actions have been grouped in 4 clusters. For each of these 4 clusters, we are providing EMIRI to the Commission, to the Member States, the needed information to make sure that they are fully aware that without innovation in materials, there is no improvement in these technologies. And that's very important, because then it makes the case to make sure that there is money to support the RTOs and to support the industry in doing the research and innovation. Now, if we go to slide 15, what we have done, as I was talking about a few minutes ago, in the framework of Horizon 2020, is to work with the European Commission in charge of materials to really build together this EMIRI, which is this document that you can find on the website. It's actually focusing on the TRL range of 4 to 7. You must know that the NMBP work program has this mandate to go from TRL 3, 4 up to 7. If you want to get some support to do research at below that level of TRL, then you have to consider other work programs, other funding tools that maybe the NCP team is best prepared to advise you on that. Also, what we wanted to do in EMIRI was not to have a long list, a long shopping list of too many topics. We really wanted to make sure that we had up to around 20 innovation priorities that we believe are important. And this is something that is very important for us, to not have too many priorities, but really to make sure that we are reaching a critical mass on each of these priorities. And the slide number 16 is actually showing you the 4 big components that we have in this program. The first one is materials to increase the energy performance of buildings. The second one is materials to make renewable electricity technology competitive. The fourth one is materials to enable the decarbonization of the power sector. So this is what people call as well CCS and CCU. So capturing the carbon or transforming the carbon into chemicals. And then the third key component is the materials to enable the energy system integration. So this is where you will find the energy storage, whether using batteries or whether using power to chemicals. We have also, upon request from the Commission, extended the scope of this component to include clean mobility, because actually the companies that prepare materials for stationary energy storage also prepare materials for clean mobility. So it makes no sense to keep these two topics separated. Now, if we go to slide 17, the impact that we can generate if we are pooling together the resources and if we are working together is first to make sure that we are getting the right materials faster to the market. This is something in which Europe, we are not so strong at. We are very good at making papers. We are very good at making patents, but sometimes we have a problem to go from the patent to the market. And this we have to accelerate it. If we are providing to the market better materials faster, it means that the technologies that contain these materials, they will also be accelerated and they will be better, faster as well. All of this is leading to what? It's leading to the industrial sector of materials for low carbon energy being able to defend itself, to become more competitive, and to maintain a strong presence of Europe. Presence, what does it mean? It means, as on the bullet number 4, securing the R&D and the capital investments to make sure that we keep on investing in research and we keep on expanding the size of the facilities for the production of materials, and at the same time that we provide jobs for the operators, for the researchers, for the engineers, for the whole innovation ecosystem. If we go on slide 18, because now I just want to show you in a way what we have obtained by our discussions with the European Commission. Many of you must be aware of the old Horizon 2020 landscape. Quickly, you have 3 pillars. One has to do with excellence in research, in science, sorry. One has to do with industrial leadership, and one has to do with societal challenges. Within industrial leadership, you have part of it which is called leadership in enabling industrial technology. And this is in this part of the pillar that the NMBP, so the Nano Materials, Bio and Processes Work Program, is located. And this is where the work of the Association of EMIRI with the members and with other associations is to make sure that the topics that are of importance for the research world and industry are supported. And then we can go on slide 19. And so this is actually the operational work that we have done since the start. Making sure that we provide to the European Commission the necessary information. This information is the result of all the members. This is not my work. This is my work to consolidate and to organize the work, but this is the result of the members' input. And as you can see, if you look at 2014 until 2018-20, so what is going to be coming in next work program, you see a strong increase in the funding that the Commission has reserved for advanced materials for energy. So this is a very good signal that we see. If you look at 2014-15, 2016-17, and then the work program which will be revealed after the summer break, you see that around 400 million of European money from the taxpayers is provided to the research community to advance materials for clean energy. So this is a very good signal that we see. This is the result of the work of EMIRI, of the members of EMIRI, of the collaboration with the European Commission, which is extremely strong and very good. Also the collaboration with the program committee reps as well as the NCP. So we can all be quite happy with this. But the message that we see is that it's time to step it up because it's quite good, but we need to increase now. And if you go on slide 20, we have made the exercise of comparing different work programs which are funded by the European Commission. And on the left, you see the NMBP work program. There is about 4 billion euro which has been allocated over Horizon 2020. Out of this 4 billion euro, we can say that around 10% has been mobilized for materials for low carbon energy. On the other side, in another directorate of the European Commission, you have a work program which is called Energy. And in this work program, which is around 5 billion euro, there is a part which is called low carbon energy technologies, in which there has been 2.6 billion euro provided. So actually, if you compare the two work programs, you realize that there is 6 times more European funding available in one program over another, even though the similar amount of jobs is concerned. In the part of the value chain which has to do with materials, we represent around 500,000. And if you remember from the previous slide, there are about 1 million jobs in Europe today in all renewable energy value chains. So that means that to do the very important work of developing materials, there is about 400 million euro available. And in order to integrate these materials into technologies, there is 6 times more money available. And we do not believe that this is making a lot of sense, and that, of course, some balance has to be brought back in the future in the framework of FP9. Now, if we go on the slide 21, I just wanted to give you a taste of what FP9 could look like. Nobody really knows, of course, but the case that I would like to make, and if any one of you has comments to provide today or by email, my email is on the first slide of the presentation. I'll be very happy to interact. The mission or the case that we would like to bring to the attention of the Commission as well as the Member States is that we believe that through innovation in materials, we can bring back part of the European low carbon energy technology industry. So typically all these technologies which have left Europe because they were no longer competitive in terms of cost, in the future we believe that Europe will be again competitive in terms of cost. And that means that if we are working quite well on the level of the materials, we can bring us back. I just want to draw your attention to the small schematic which is on the left side of the slide, where you can see different cost structures. And it's actually coming from a report which has been done by the American Department of State under the Obama presidency, where they have looked at the cost structure of, for example, photovoltaic modules. So they have done the exercise for different technologies. And about 50% of the cost of a low carbon energy technology is materials. The only other cost factors that you see, of course, is equipment, which is about the same for everyone. It's labor cost, which is of course lower in China compared to Europe and US. And then it's energy cost, which is lower in US compared to China and Europe. However, there are a couple of trends that are happening today in the world. The first one is that the cost of labor in China is increasing a lot. It's increasing about 15 to 20% per year, but it's not followed by an increase in the productivity. That means that today it's actually cheaper to produce in eastern part of Europe than to produce in China for some goods and services. The second trend that you see is that thanks to Industry 4.0, some processes can be automatized and the cost of labor in the total cost structure can be diminished as well. Also with Industry 4.0, you can better trace where you are wasting energy, and you can reduce your electricity cost as well. The third trend that you see is that some regions are becoming extremely protectionist. Look at the US, for example. They want to bring back as much industry as possible. Europe is now slowly getting close to this idea as well. China is very strong at developing its own industry. It's a model, and they keep on doing the same. And then there is a last trend that is also, of course, very important, is that the whole shipping industry on a boat from China, Asia to Western world is not working well and is very, very disrupted because there are too many things that have to go on the ship. That means that it's very often the case that products arrive in Europe with a long delay. So it's very difficult for a company using that product to organize production then. So if you take all these trends, and if you also take the last trend, which is shown on the right part of the slide, that when you bring a technology to a higher performance level, actually the share that materials represent in the cost structure goes up. And there you have on the right side of the slide, the example of the windmills. There has been a modeling where they have looked at how much do we increase the cost of materials in the cost structure if we take the blade from 50 meters of diameter to 70 meters. And in that case, the cost of materials in the total cost goes from 50 to 65%. So I hope that I managed to convince you that if you take all these trends together, you see that the cost structures are completely changing, and that in the future, most of the cost of a low carbon energy technology will actually be the material. That means that in the future, the vision that you can have is that Europe will produce the low carbon energy technologies that it needs for its own continent. China will produce for China, US will produce for US. And these sectors will be provided with materials, and where we have a strength in Europe is of course in that sector. And that sector we need to keep on developing it, because it's important for this sector, but it's also important in order to enable the production of this low carbon energy technology. And this is the reason why in FP9, we really need to come together as much as possible behind a simple story that brings hopes to the citizens that jobs can be created with advanced materials and that jobs can be created fighting climate change. And there are a couple of other slides, but actually I think that my time is up, so maybe it's better to take some questions now.
Thank you, Fabrice. This was indeed a very interesting presentation. We will open now the session, the questions from the chat. Marta, we received anything from the chat?
Actually, I think our audience today is very shy, but we have received one question through the registration form, and I will start with this one. Although I'm not sure if Fabrice is the best person to answer this, because I think this should be a question posed to the European Commission, but maybe Fabrice, you can give us our opinion on this. So the question is, could you please explain which TRL level is associated to the demonstration of the proposed solutions in relevant conditions, and whether demonstrators may or may not involve integration of components with proposed material solutions into real production systems?
Yeah, it's a pretty complicated question. The only thing that I can say is that if you are answering a call which is in the NMBP work program, for each call a range of TRLs will be indicated. And that means that you will have to be able to, in a way, integrate your project into this range of TRLs. There's also a document which you can find on the website of the Commission, which explains what is meant by the European Commission behind every number of TRL. So my advice would be the following. Make sure that if you have something in mind, the TRL range that you have in mind is in line with the TRL range which is in the call. That's the first point. The second point, make sure that you understand what is meant by a 3, by a 4, by a 5, according to the Commission and according to yourself, because at the end of the day, if you have submitted the proposal, the expert will evaluate the proposal based on the definition of the Commission for the TRLs. And if you have any doubt, I think that you can pick up the phone and you can try to reach out to the policymakers which are in the NMBP team and ask them for any clarification, just to make sure that you do not work at writing a proposal starting with a bad assumption. And in that respect, it's very useful that you have the NMBP national contact forms, because they are the best relays for that. So I would really encourage you to use them.
Thank you, Fabrice. That's right. We are in an NMP team. We have recorded a video about TRL levels, so you can watch this virtual event for clients about TRL levels on the NMP team website. And we also have there the questions and answers, frequently asked questions actually, so you can have more information on that. I see we have not received any questions from the chat, but I have some, Fabrice. So can you tell us the story how this initiative started, how the association was born?
Okay. I was not active in the association when it was born, so I was not a spectator, but I can tell you the story I kind of heard in a way, is that when the European Commission came with the concept of the Strategic Energy Technology Plan, which was in a way, a political decision to make sure that Europe was able to promote lower cost, lower environmentally impacting technologies for energy. It was asked to a couple of companies and universities and research centers around Europe to come together and take this set plan concept and translate it in different kinds of chapters. And one chapter had to do with the kind of materials which are then needed to make the set plan a reality. And this is how actually a couple of companies started working together and putting together common knowledge, even though some of them were maybe competitors, just to really bring something to the Commission. When the exercise was finished, and I think it was at the end of 2011, early 2012, the different stakeholders which had provided time and money and expertise in doing this asked the Commission, so what is next? And then the Commission said, well, we have appreciated that all these players could come together so that we had one point of contact, one person to talk to in order to get the feedback we needed. Because in the past, they would get information coming from the steel sector, from the plastic sector, from different sectors. And then sometimes the Commission was lost because there were different messages. And this is how EMIRI came to exist, with really the purpose of being the contact point of the Commission when it comes to talking about materials for energy. So if the Commission comes to us with a specific question, we are then making the link towards our members or even other stakeholders, asking them for comments, for information. Then we synthesize this information and we bring it back to the Commission. Just really to make sure that we are speaking as one voice and we are not creating too much noise, I would say. That's the story behind.
And that's a very important objective, of course. So you talked about different kinds of association or associates. So members, board members, EMIRI community. What is the difference between them?
So actually, if you want to join until now, if you wanted to be active in the frame of EMIRI, you had to become a member. And there are different kinds of members depending on where you are coming from. If you are a university or research organizations, the cost for becoming a member is lower. If you are coming from the industry, then of course you have a membership fee which is higher. And then you have also associations which are becoming members of EMIRI for free. So this is how it started. Of course, then we wanted to grow the association, and we sometimes came close to people who told us, well, actually, I may not have the financial resources, especially the case for universities, for example, to be active in the association. I understand that if I'm not a paying member, I will not get the same benefits, but I would like, in a way, to still be connected to EMIRI. And this is how we came with the concept of the community. If you want to be involved in EMIRI without being a member, so without having to provide financial resources or without to have to provide someone giving some of his time to the association, you can support the association, you can support Materials for Energy by just being part of this community. This kind of community is completely free of charge, and we hope it's going to take off, because we really want to make sure that At the end of the day, we can have as much information coming from different stakeholders to make sure that everybody finds its way around. This is brand new, so we have opened the concept of EMIRI community stakeholder recently. So this is just starting. If we are able to attract a sufficient amount of community members, then we will also put together a platform where people will be able to exchange information, to interact in preparing the calls, or to simply get to know each other. So this is really my call to you. If after this chat you want to do something quickly for EMIRI and also something quickly for advanced materials, just click on the link that was in the presentation and become simply a community member for free. And then if we have sufficient amount, we'll be able to take it at another level.
Thank you, Fabrice. Now, I think I'm going to put a provocative question. I'm not sure. Is it possible to become a board member, or is it closed already?
It's not closed in the sense that in order to become a board member, you need to be a paying member. And then according to the statutes, we have a formula in order to determine how many board members we are welcoming from industry and how many board members we are welcoming from the association world, and how many university/RTO side. So the first thing, if you want to become a board member, you have to be a contributing board member, and then every year we are changing part of the composition of the steering committee of the board. So you just have then to apply to become a member of the board, and then it is left to the General Assembly to decide who they want to appoint. So there's a very clear governance process due to the fact that we are a legal entity. So we are not a platform without any legal status. We have to follow the Belgian law, and the Belgian law is asking us to operate that way. So every 2 years, every year we are changing part of the composition of the board. So if a member wants to become board member, he can apply to become a board member.
Okay, so there is rotation.
There is a rotation, provided some people are applying to be candidates. If no one is applying to be candidates, then we keep the same board.
Okay, of course. And what is the advantage of becoming a board member?
Oh, well, this is a question that we should ask to the board members.
Okay, I can put this in another way. So what kind of services do you provide to your associates? To board members, to the EMIRI community, to other kind of association?
But we do not provide a better or more service to a member, whether the member is board member or not. Okay. So once you are a member, you are a member. Becoming a board member is more something that companies or research organizations do in order to work in closer interaction with another company or another board member, or simply because they want to help and they have time and they want to help us. But whether you are part of the board or whether you're not part of the board, you are receiving exactly the same service.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've showed some studies and some analysis. That is something that the association do, and it is available for everyone or only for the associates?
No, most of the presentations that we do, usually we do them because we're using them at events. That means that then they are completely publicly available. So you can download most of these on the website of EMIRI in the section which is called Documents. And if we do some specific studies, usually in the beginning, for example, they may be shared with the members in order for them to be able to provide some content to the studies. But once the studies are final, then they are really shared with everyone within and outside of the organization.
Perfect.
I think that it's always important when you generate knowledge that you spread it as much as possible.
Yes, indeed.
So there are no top secret documents.
Okay, I'm glad you make that clear. You mentioned brokerage events, and that's also it's a good tool to especially to make consortia to apply to the calls. You said that there are some places available. You give priority, of course, to your associates, but sometimes there are seats free. How can
Yes.
we, as a stakeholder, how can a stakeholder contact you, showing interest in being part of that brokerage event?
Okay. So typically for a brokerage event, and the next one will be in the beginning of November, we are limited, of course, by capacity reasons, because if we want to be able to welcome more people, we would need a bigger room, but that would be nice to have some European funding to be able to organize this, but we don't. So imagine that we have 100 spaces available. We will typically keep 85 for the members, and then maybe 10, 15 for the non-members, because we want to give also the possibility to others to see what it's like to be part of EMIRI and to join us. So the first step there is make sure that you are part of the community. If you are part of the EMIRI community, then you will be eligible to join if you are among these 15 or these 20 people that have the chance to get a seat. How will it function? Actually, in the course of before summer, we will officially announce the brokerage event, and we will use the typical Eventbrite system, so that there's a couple of seats which will be left available to non-members, and it will be on a first come, first served basis. So I would say to you, keep on following the website of EMIRI. There will be a link for the non-members, and if there are 15 seats and there are 50 people asking to come, I will of course have a problem. So I will have to allocate to the 15 first people who have joined the community and who have declared that they want to be part of the event. I wish I could welcome more people, of course, but unfortunately this is not the case. One thing that would be maybe interesting to do, but this is more something that we can put in the hands of the NCP team, is that if there are some national brokerage events, I'm very happy to come and to be active in forums, of course. But for the ones that we do in Brussels, we are limited capacity problems. So it's a little bit on first come, first served basis.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's answering your question.
Thank you for that information, Fabrice. No, actually, I have no more questions, and we have received any other question from the chat. So thank you. And that's all from my side.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Fabrice. Actually, I just have one quick question for you. You will be present at the Nano Forum in Malta.
Yes, so during Nano Forum, there will be a session on materials and nanotechnology for low carbon energy technology. So please, if you are in Malta, just come and give us a quick hello and attend the session.
Yeah, this was my last information. NMP team will be present in Malta with a stand. And of course, all the NCPs that will be there will be available to help the stakeholders, replying to questions. And even if you want to meet Fabrice, maybe we can try to find him in the delegates, between the delegates, and present Fabrice to you. Finally, Fabrice, would you like to say something more before we close the event?
No, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity you gave me to present to the people EMIRI within a short amount of time. with a lot of information. So I apologize if it was sometimes too dense. But if you have any questions, my email is on the first slide. So don't hesitate to drop me a question. I'm happy to help you. And as Sophia said, I will be present in Malta. So if we want, for example, to fix a slot like for 1 hour, I'm on the stand and I answer questions. It's also my pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Fabrice. We hope this event was useful. We remind you that all the information regarding virtual event for clients is on the NMP team website. The information from today's event will soon be uploaded and all the participants will be contacted when available. That's all from our side. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.